my fear away. No more playing it cool. Turn around, homeward bound, I'm not gonna run aground in a ship of fools. Gonna keep the spirit in me shining through. My God rules. My God rules. My God rules.
When I was a boy, I was fortunate enough to spend my summer holidays between picking tomatoes at my parents' market garden and visiting my cousins at their Nottinghamshire farm. One of the tasks we did on the farm was called wopping, or wild oat pulling. I one time wondered why it wasn't done until just before the harvest, and was told that the wild oats can't be easily recognised until they have grown above the wheat and begun to bear the different fruit. If we tried to pull them earlier in the season, then we would be more likely to pull up good wheat with them. After this meaningful exchange, I reverted to throwing clods of earth at my sister and was duly reprimanded by my aunt. The parable we have before us today is termed in the KJV the wheat and the tares. But since tares are not common parlance today, the NIV kindly translates it weeds. It's one of the few parables that Jesus interprets for us, so we don't miss the point. He's telling this parable from a boat on the Sea of Galilee. As you can see, this is an agricultural area, and his listeners would have been familiar with either fishing or farming. So it's very logical that he would have chosen to communicate using symbols they would have been familiar with. In this chapter, he tells 4 separate seed-related parables. The sower, which we heard about last week, the mustard seed, and yeast. He also told a fish-related parable, that of the net, and also twin field parables of the hidden treasure and the pearl of great price, not to be confused with the Mormon book. Let's read the parable, and then the interpretation from the NIV. Matthew 13, starting at verse 24. Jesus told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while everyone was sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. When the wheat sprouted and formed heads, then the weeds also appeared. The owner's servant came to him and said, "Sir, didn't you sow good seed in your field? Where then did the weeds come from?" "An enemy did this," he replied. The servants asked him, "Do you want us to go and pull them up?" "No," he answered, "because while you are pulling the weeds, you may uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. At that time I will tell the harvesters, first collect the weeds and tie them in bundles to be burned. Then gather the wheat and bring it into my barn." Verse 36. Then he left the crowd and went into the house. His disciples came to him and he said, "Explain to us the parable of the weeds in the field." He answered, "The one who sowed the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed stands for the people of the kingdom. The weeds are the people of the evil one, and the enemy who sows them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the harvesters are angels. As the weeds are pulled up and burned in the fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will weed out of his kingdom everything that causes sin and all who do evil. They will throw them into the blazing furnace, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Whoever has ears, let them hear. Every church in every village and town, in every country of the world, has wild oats. These are those people who teach false doctrine, who hamper and distract from the work of the church by bringing division and gossip. Some false doctrine is easy to spot and is found on Christian TV, followed by a guilt trip to give them money. Or are those pseudo-Christian cults who no longer knock on my door. Avoiding prosperity gospel and cults is good, but we must be equally aware of those oats in our own congregation who would derail the church. How can we safeguard against them? By following good biblical models of testing the spirits, as per 1 John 4, 1-3. Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God. For many false prophets have gone out into the world. By this you know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God. And every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you heard was coming and is now in the world already. The other thing to recognise is that it's not our place to pull the wild oats. We are not in the place of God or his angels, and we do not have enough knowledge to judge anyone's eternal destiny. As St. Augustine once wrote of this passage, those who are tares today may be wheat tomorrow. Our attitude to others who profess Christ, but who are bearing contradictory fruit to that of the Spirit, should be grace and love, which is what God has shown to us. Gentle correction may be offered if appropriate, but we are only responsible for our own walk with Christ, and we cannot know anyone else's personal struggles any more than they know ours. This is both sobering and glorious. As Christians, we can rejoice at the coming world, free of all those things that rob us of our joy today. Sin, our own and others, false teaching, natural and moral evil. But for the unbeliever, this is a dire warning. Jesus didn't mince his words, and we can be in no doubt about his meaning of the destiny of a blazing furnace with weeping and gnashing of teeth. Our focus has to be being wheat and not tares. Christ showed us exactly what he thought of those people we may consider to be weeds. He showed us 2,000 years ago when he gave up his life in the cruelest and most barbaric deaths imaginable for their sake. There are no ordinary humans. There are only image bearers of God for whom Christ died in order to bring them freedom and salvation. So employ discernment and wise judgment, but let's not be judgmental. If you are concerned that you may be a weed in the wheat field, then examine your fruit to test your own spirit. Does your life display love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control? If not, draw close to Christ and ask him to grow that fruit in you. If you think someone else is a weed, then love them as Christ did. Forgive them as Christ has, and show them that same grace that God has shown you. Let's be a church where our tares become wheat. Amen.
Okay, this day I put my fear away. No more playing it cool. Turn around, homeward bound. My God rules. My God rules.